My boyfriend announced his unemployed brother and girlfriend were moving into my house, and I could live in the basement. I said fine. Then I had his things professionally packed while he was celebrating. Now his entire family is trying to ruin my life. There's a language that exists only between a person and their home. It's a silent conversation spoken in the creak of a floorboard, the particular slant of afternoon light through a window, the familiar scent of rain on dry soil in the garden. My home and I, we speak this language fluently. It's a dialogue etched into my very bones, because this house isn't just where I live. It's a living testament to 10 years of my life I can never get back. My hands plunge deep into the cool, dark earth of the rose garden, know every root and stone. I can feel the phantom weight of my mother's hand next to mine, teaching me how to prune the Abraham Darbies, their soft, apricot pink blooms smelling of fruit and old-world perfume. This garden is where I feel her most, but the whole house is a sanctuary of memory. It's also a monument to my own sacrifice. I can still taste the metallic tang of fear from that day my father, his face ashen with more than just illness, sat me down at the kitchen table and slid a foreclosure notice across the worn oak. They were going to lose it all. Their home. My home. I was 24, full of dreams about kills and clay and a little pottery studio by the sea. Instead, I put those dreams in a box, tucked it away in the attic of my mind, and got to work. 2 jobs, 7 days a week, for the better part of a decade. I ate cheap. I never traveled. I poured every ounce of my youth and my energy into the gaping maw of a mortgage. The day I made the final payment, I didn't celebrate. I just came home, laid my head on the kitchen table where the nightmare began, and cried until I had nothing left. The house was mine, but more than that, it was safe. That's the home Liam moved into 2 years ago. Liam, with his kilowatt smile and his eyes that promised a future I desperately wanted to believe in. He was charming, attentive, and he made me feel, for the first time in a long time, like I wasn't just the caretaker of a property, but a woman who was loved. He would wrap his arms around me from behind while I was washing dishes and whisper, "Look at what we've built, Sarah." At first, it sounded like a beautiful shared sentiment. It took me a long time to realize that his we was a very different concept from my we. My we was built on sacrifice and toil. His we was built on my foundation. He'd slide into the kitchen on a Saturday morning, handing me a coffee he'd brewed. "You know what would be amazing, babe?" he'd say, leaning against the counter I'd spent a month restoring. "A pool, right off the back deck." Can you imagine? I could imagine. I could also imagine the $50,000 price tag, and I knew exactly whose bank account would be funding that particular vision. I'd just smile and say, maybe one day, and the conversation would drift away, but the suggestion would hang in the air, a tiny, unspoken debt added to my emotional ledger. His family was complicated. They were a tight-knit unit, orbiting his father, Richard, a successful, domineering lawyer with a handshake that felt more like an appraisal. His mother, Eleanor, was different. She was quiet, with a gentle, almost sad quality to her eyes. The week before everything fell apart, she called me. It was unusual. She rarely called me directly. "Sarah, dear," she started, her voice a little unsteady. I was just thinking of you. I hope you're well." "I'm great, Eleanor. We were just talking about having you and Richard over for dinner on Sunday." I said, my default setting always being the cheerful hostess. There was a pause. "That's lovely. But are you all right? Truly? Richard and Liam, they could be a lot. I hope they're treating you with the kindness you deserve." Her words were a soft, tentative warning, a little flag raised in a fog I didn't want to see. Blinded by my love for her son, by my desperate craving for the family unit he represented, I dismissed it. "Of course they are," I'd said a little too brightly. "Liam is wonderful. We're so happy." I heard her take a small, sharp breath, a sound I would only understand in hindsight, before she murmured, "Oh, good. That's good to hear, dear." That same week, I was organizing my desk, preparing our taxes, or rather, my taxes and the property taxes for the house. My fingers brushed against a thick manila folder tucked in the back of a drawer. I pulled it out. Inside, crisp and official, was the promissory note, a legal document stating that Liam David Andrews owed me Sarah Jean Connor, the sum of $20,000. I sank into my chair, the paper feeling heavy in my hands. 3 years ago, he'd come to me, his eyes wide with entrepreneurial fire, spinning a tale of a tech startup, a can't-miss opportunity. He just needed a little seed money. I was hesitant, but I was also in love. At the last minute, a flicker of my father's pragmatism kicked in, and I insisted he sign a formal note. He'd laughed it off, his pride a little stung, but he signed it. The startup, of course, never materialized. The money was just gone, and I, too ashamed of my poor judgment and too afraid of rocking the boat of our relationship, had let it go. I'd written it off as a sunk cost, the price of admission for the life I thought we were building. I stared at his confident, looping signature. It felt like a relic from another lifetime, a testament to a version of me that was far too willing to trade her own security for the illusion of a shared dream. With a sigh, I slid the document back into its folder and pushed the drawer shut. It was just a piece of paper, I told myself. It didn't matter. I had no idea that I had just put away the only weapon I would have in the war that was about to be declared on me in my own home. The scent of rosemary and roasted chicken filled the house, a smell I'd always associated with warmth and family. I'd spent all of Sunday cooking, arranging flowers from the garden, setting the table with the good china. I wanted everything to be perfect. Liam's parents, Richard and Eleanor, were coming, and I was determined to bridge the formal gap that always seemed to exist between us. I wanted to feel less like Liam's girlfriend who owned the house, and more like a daughter-in-law. They arrived, and from the beginning, the dynamic was off. Richard strode in, patting Liam on the back and immediately launching into a story about a recent courtroom victory, his booming voice consuming all the air in the room. Liam, basking in his father's attention, played his part as the proud son. Eleanor gave me a quick, tight hug, her eyes darting around the room as if looking for an escape route. I felt a familiar pang of being an outsider, a well-appointed fixture in someone else's family drama. We sat down to dinner, and the conversation was monopolized by Richard and Liam. They talked about golf, about investments, about the perceived failings of their political opponents. I became a ghost at my own table, my role reduced to refilling wine glasses and passing the bread. Then, as I was clearing the main course plates, Richard set his glass down with a decisive thud. So, he began, looking not at me, but at Liam. Have you spoken to Sarah about the family arrangement? I froze, a stack of plates in my hands. Liam wiped his mouth with a napkin, avoiding my gaze. I was just about to get to that, Dad. He finally turned to me, a practiced, placating smile on his face. Babe, we've come up with a fantastic solution for Evan and Chloe. Evan was Liam's younger brother, the perpetual aspiring vlogger, and Chloe was his equally ambitionless girlfriend. They were living off a dwindling trust fund and their parents' largesse. A solution? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Yes. Richard cut in, his tone leaving no room for discussion. They're going to move in here. It's the sensible thing to do. This is a big house, and family needs to support family. The plates in my hand suddenly felt impossibly heavy. Move in? Here? The spare rooms are my office and my pottery space. Liam let out a small, condescending laugh. Sarah, be serious. They need actual bedrooms. Your hobbies can be moved. He waved a dismissive hand. Obviously, they'll take the 2 spare rooms. They need a proper space to get back on their feet, focus on their brands. And of course, Richard added, leaning forward like a predator, they won't be paying rent or utilities. It's our duty to give them that leg up. A cold dread, heavy and suffocating, began to seep into my chest. I could feel Eleanor's eyes on me, wide with what looked like pity. I pushed on, my voice trembling. And us? The master bedroom is our room. This was it. This was the moment the world tilted on its axis. Liam looked at me, his expression not of malice, but of utter, blank entitlement. It was the look you'd give a piece of furniture that was in the way. Well, that's the best part of the plan. Evan and Chloe can take the master bedroom. It has the big en-suite bathroom, and it's just better for a couple. He paused, letting the implications sink in. Then he delivered the final, killing blow. You can move your things down to the basement. It's a big space. You could sleep down there. It'll be like your own little studio apartment. The basement. My basement was a cold, damp, concrete cavern. It housed the water heater, the furnace, and a century's worth of spiders. It was a place for storage for forgotten things. It was where he was sending me, in a house my sweat and tears had paid for. I was being demoted. I was being erased. The clatter of my fork hitting the plate I just set down was the only sound. It was sharp, final. I looked from Liam's expectant face to Richard's smug one, and then to Eleanor, who had gone pale. And in that moment, the years of love, of hope, of trying so damn hard, they didn't just fade. They were incinerated. The part of my brain that felt hurt and betrayal went completely dark, and another part, a cold, crystalline, logical part, came online. A switch had been flipped. I was no longer a partner. I was a strategist in a war I hadn't known I was fighting. I lifted my chin, met Liam's eyes, and a calm, genuine smile spread across my face. It was the most honest smile I'd given him in months. "Okay," I said. The relief in the room was palpable. Liam broke into a triumphant grin. "Oh my God, babe. I knew you'd understand. This is going to be great." Richard clapped him on the shoulder, victorious. They thought they had won. They had no idea they'd just handed me the declaration of war. Liam announced he was taking everyone out for celebratory drinks. He kissed my cheek, a cold, meaningless gesture, and they left, their laughter echoing down the front walk. The moment their car's taillights disappeared around the corner, I moved. There was no hesitation. My first call was to a 24-hour locksmith. I need an emergency, top-of-the-line security rekeying for my entire house. "How soon can you be here?" My second call was to a premium moving service. I needed tenants' belongings professionally packed and moved into a storage unit. Immediately. I want the entire process videotaped and a detailed, signed inventory of every single item. I paid for 3 months on a climate-controlled unit, right over the phone. The locksmith arrived in 20 minutes. While he worked, drilling out the old locks that had held my false sense of security, I began my own work. I was a machine. I gathered every trace of Liam from my life. His clothes from the closet, his overpriced face creams from the bathroom, his laptop from the den, his collection of pretentious novels from the nightstand. The professional packers arrived an hour later, a silent, efficient team. They boxed up his life with a speed and impersonality that mirrored the new emptiness in my heart. By 10 o'clock that night, every single thing that was his was gone. The house felt lighter. It felt like it could breathe again. It felt like mine. I took the storage unit key, the receipt, and the notarized inventory list, placed them in a clear plastic envelope, and taped it securely to the gleaming, unfamiliar lock on my new front door. I knew the storm was coming, but for the first time, I felt ready. I had my foundation, my walls, and a new set of keys. I was no longer a resident in my own life. I was the owner. The first texts began around 11 p.m., just as I was washing the last of the dinner plates. They followed a predictable arc of emotion, a neat little graph of dawning horror. First, confusion from Liam. "Hey, the key isn't working. Did you lock the deadbolt from the inside or something?" Then, irritation. "Sarah, I'm outside. It's cold. What's going on? Answer your phone." Then rage, this time from Richard's number. "What is the meaning of this? Open this door immediately. You are playing a very dangerous game, young lady." I watched the messages pop up on my phone, my face illuminated by the cold blue light in the quiet, dark kitchen. I didn't answer. The doorbell camera, another one of my quiet upgrades, showed Liam, his face contorted in disbelief, rattling the new, unyielding doorknob. His father stood behind him, red-faced and sputtering. I activated the intercom. "Can I help you?" I asked, my voice as calm and even as a frozen lake. Liam jumped back, startled. "Sarah, what the hell did you do? Let us in." "I'm afraid I can't do that," I said. "Liam, your tenancy here has been terminated. Your belongings are safe. The key to your new storage unit is on the door in front of you, along with a complete inventory. I believe you'll find everything is in order." Richard shoved his son aside, his face looming in the fisheye lens. "You listen to me. You can't just throw him out. There are laws. I will sue you for illegal eviction so fast your head will spin." Then I welcome you to do so, I replied, the words tasting like freedom. All future communications can be directed to my lawyer. Her information will be forwarded to you tomorrow. Have a good evening, Richard. I cut the connection, leaving them shouting into the silent night. The next few days were a masterclass in manipulative warfare. The first move was a gambit I hadn't expected. On Tuesday afternoon, my doorbell rang. It was Eleanor, holding a foil-covered baking dish. She looked exhausted, her eyes red-rimmed. A Trojan horse, bearing a peace offering of what smelled like lasagna. "Sarah, please," she began the moment I answered through the intercom. "Can I just come in? Liam is devastated. He knows he made a mistake. He just wants to talk to you, to apologize." My heart ached for her. I could see the genuine pain in her face, the turmoil of a mother caught between a monstrous husband and an entitled son. But I also saw the strategy. They had sent their softest weapon to breach my walls. I had to hold the line. "Eleanor, I care about you. I truly do," I said, my voice gentle but firm. "But the answer is no. There is nothing left to talk about. The trust is gone. I'm so sorry, but the door is closed. For good." I watched her shoulders slump as she turned away, leaving the lasagna on the porch like a surrendered flag. The failed peace mission was immediately followed by the declaration of legal war. A courier delivered a thick envelope from Richard's law firm. It was a formal notice of intent to sue, a litany of bogus claims, illegal eviction, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and conversion of property. They were demanding $50,000 in damages. My hands shook as I read it, but my resolve didn't waver. I immediately called the lawyer I had researched and put on retainer, a sharp, no-nonsense woman named Ms. Davis. I forwarded her the documents. Her call came an hour later. "Sarah," she said, her voice crisp and confident, "this is a classic bully tactic. It's designed to intimidate you into folding. But they've made a grave tactical error. They've opened the door for us." "What do you mean?" I asked. "I mean," she said, and I could hear the smile in her voice, "they've given us a formal reason to bring up that old promissory note of yours. It's time to go on the offensive." While Ms. Davis prepared our response, Liam and Evan launched their attack on another front, social media. It was a vicious smear campaign, vague, passive-aggressive posts about toxic women and narcissists who pretend to be victims. Evan posted a teary-eyed video on his vlog, talking about how his family was being torn apart by a manipulative, unstable person. They never used my name, but in our small circle, they didn't have to. The lies stung, but they also created an unexpected opportunity. My next-door neighbor, Carol, a retired teacher who had known me since I was a little girl, had seen the whole drama unfold. She'd seen Richard screaming at my door. She'd seen Eleanor's sad visit. When she saw the post one of our mutual friends shared, she marched over to my house, a plate of her own cookies in hand. "I saw what they're writing about you," she said, her eyes flashing with indignation. "It's slander is what it is. I have the video from my security camera of that man, Richard, threatening you. If you need a witness, you have one." In that moment, Carol was more family to me than the people I had just expelled from my life. Their smear campaign had just provided me with a verified, third-party witness to their harassment. A week later, Ms. Davis was ready. We didn't just file a motion to dismiss their frivolous lawsuit. We filed a countersuit. It was a thing of beauty, a perfectly crafted legal missile. We demanded the immediate repayment of the $20,000 loan, plus 3 years of accrued interest calculated at the maximum legal rate. Because Liam had no assets of his own, the suit noted that we would seek financial restitution from those who enabled and benefited from his fraud, a clear shot across the bow at Richard. We had turned the tables completely. The financial pressure was no longer on me. It was squarely on them. The countersuit sent shockwaves through their camp. The social media posts stopped. The angry calls ceased. There was only silence. A deep, worried silence. Then, late one evening, I received a call from a block number. I almost ignored it, but something told me to answer. "Hello, Sarah? It's Eleanor." Her voice was a bare whisper, thick with a lifetime of swallowed words. "I need to see you. Please. It's important." We met at a quiet coffee shop across town. She looked like she had aged 10 years. She explained that the countersuit had thrown her husband into a rage. He was terrified of the financial discovery process, of his own books being opened. In his panic, he had revealed the depth of his contempt for me, for her, for everyone he couldn't control. He said, she stammered, tears welling in her eyes. He said you were just a temporary inconvenience. But the plan was always to get Liam's name on the deed. He called the house his son's inheritance. She reached into her purse and pulled out a small digital voice recorder. I was so tired of being silent, she whispered. So tired. She pressed play, and I heard it all. The conversation in the car after they'd left my house that Sunday. Richard, Liam, and Evan laughing. Laughing about how easy I was to fool. Laughing about their plan to eventually phase me out of my own home. Richard's voice, clear as day, saying, just keep her sweet for another year or two, and we'll convince her to put your name on the deed. The house is as good as ours. Eleanor then gave me the final, most devastating piece of ammunition. He's been using funds from his firm's client trust account to cover Liam's debts for years. It's not my recording, but I know who to talk to. I know where the bodies are buried. Sarah. She was offering me the key to his complete destruction. They wanted a war. My quiet, unassuming mother-in-law that never was had just handed me the nuclear codes. The game was over. They just didn't all know it yet. With the audio recording and Eleanor's information, my position was no longer just defensive. It was unassailable. Ms. Davis advised against a public detonation. There was no need for a messy, protracted battle that would drag Eleanor through the mud. A quiet, decisive victory would be far more powerful. Ms. Davis arranged a settlement conference, not with Richard, but with his lawyer. The tone was no longer aggressive. Our demands were simple and non-negotiable. 1. Their lawsuit against me was to be dropped immediately, with prejudice, meaning it could never be filed again. 2. A certified check for the full amount of the countersuit, $20,000 plus every cent of interest, was to be delivered to Ms. Davis's office within 48 hours. 3. A legally binding non-disclosure and no-contact order was to be signed by Liam, Richard, Evan, and Chloe. They were to never contact me, write about me, or come within 500 feet of me or my property ever again. Their lawyer balked at first. Ms. Davis simply played the first 30 seconds of the audio recording over the speakerphone. The sound of Richard and Liam laughing about defrauding me filled the office. She then calmly mentioned the term client trust account. The silence on the other end of the line was absolute. The agreement was signed, and the check was delivered the next day. It wasn't about the money, not really. It was about the accounting. It was the full and final payment for the illusion I had bought into for so long. The fallout for them was quiet but complete. Eleanor filed for divorce, finally claiming her own life. Without his father's financial safety net and with his reputation in tatters, Liam was forced to get a menial job, the kind he had always looked down upon. Evan's vlog faded into obscurity. They were ghosts now, haunting a life that was no longer mine. About a month later, Liam appeared at my gate. He didn't ring the bell. He just stood there, looking thin and defeated. I saw him on the camera feed, and, for a moment, I considered ignoring him. But I knew I needed to close this final chapter myself. I walked to the door and opened it, standing behind the locked storm door, a barrier of glass between us. He looked startled to see me, as if he expected me to hide. "Sarah," he said, his voice raspy. I just wanted to ask why. Why did you have to ruin my life?" The question was so perfectly, so purely him, so steeped in his own victimhood that it was almost breathtaking. The old Sarah would have been hurt. The old Sarah might have even tried to explain. But the new Sarah, the woman forged in the fire of his betrayal, just felt a profound, pitying calm. I looked at him, at this stranger who had slept in my bed and eaten at my table, and I saw him for what he was, a hollow man, a reflection of his father's worst instincts. "You're asking the wrong question, Liam," I said, my voice even and steady, carrying easily through the glass. "The question you should be asking yourself is why you ever thought you had the right to do what you did. You didn't build this house. You didn't build me. And you don't get to destroy either." I didn't wait for a reply. I simply turned, walked back into the quiet of my home, and locked the door. I used the money from the settlement to finally build my dream. The basement, the cold, dark place he had tried to banish me to, became my sanctuary. I had it professionally waterproofed and finished. Bright, clean light now floods the space where dampness and shadows once lived. My kiln sits in the corner, a promise of warmth and creation. My potter's wheel is centered in the middle of the room, waiting. Sometimes, when I'm down there, my hands covered in wet, spinning clay, I think about the battle I won. It wasn't a victory that brought champagne and celebration. It was a quieter triumph. It was the victory of reclaiming my own space, my own story. I learned that boundaries are not the walls we build to keep others out. They are the sacred foundations we build to protect the value within ourselves. They are the ultimate act of self-love. And that peace, that hard-won, quiet peace, is worth more than any price I ever had to pay. Have you ever had to fight a war to reclaim a piece of yourself you didn't know you were losing? I would love to hear your story.